first topic that you guys are going to be doing is Pythagoras. And then Pythagoras Theorem is one of the topics that you encounter in second form, third form, and then you move into fourth form. It is also a topic that is quite easy to understand. It's not so difficult. There is only one formula to it, and the formula is c squared equals to a squared plus b squared. And then that is the formula that we're going to be using to solve Pythagoras theorem. Of course, it falls under trigonometry, where trigonometry has several formulas that you could use. Trig first starts off with Pythagoras theorem, then moves to trig ratio, then followed by sine rule, and then cosine rule. You guys are going to be doing the four of them. And we're starting off with Pythagoras. Like I said, Pythagoras is c squared equals to a squared plus b squared, where c is the hypotenuse, right? And then A and B are the legs. Now you might be asking yourself, what am I saying with hypotenuse and legs? Of course, whenever you use Pythagoras theorem, the first thing that you have to look at is that your triangle, your triangle is a 90 degrees triangle, right? So your triangle has to be a 90 degrees triangle, which means that you're going to end up with something like this. And then most commonly there is a little box here on the corner which indicates it is 90 degrees, right? So let's quickly, since we have gotten into the right angle triangle, let's quickly identify which one is the hypotenuse and which one are the legs. A and B are the legs. Now A and B are going to be this one here, and then the other leg is going to be that one there. Now the two legs are going to be the ones that support the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is this one here, right? And that is what we have. Now with this formula, c squared equals to a squared plus b squared, we use it to solve a side when given the other two sides, right? So this is what you have to follow. One, it is a 90 degrees triangle, so take a look. 90 degrees triangle, so we can use Pythagoras. Secondly, use to solve a side whenever the other two sides are given, right? So this is how it's going to look. Let's say you have the same triangle up there. You have that this is 90 degrees, so we have one that it is a 90 degrees, and then two, it says that two sides are going to be given. Let's say that this is going to be 10 miles, and then that this side is going to be 8 miles, right? And then it says determine what is the length of the other leg, or find the value of x. That is what we have. Now how do we solve it? First thing, I will write down my formula, which is going to be c squared equals to a squared plus b squared, right? That is what we have. C squared equals to a squared plus b squared, right? I will have to move it a little bit because I see that I cannot, it's not able to be seen. This one is going to be 8. I'll put it in there, right? So let's continue. First thing that we want to do is first identify. We have that this is the leg. I'll just put L for leg and then L for leg. The hypotenuse is going to be this one here. I'll put HYP. Also notice that the hypotenuse is always the longest side. In this case, the longest side is the 10. So this one is going to be my hypotenuse. I know that the figure, the triangle might be my switch. Hence, one thing that I see, or how do I identify the hypotenuse? It is always opposite. Opposite to the 90 degrees, right? So first thing what I have to do is just identify where the 90 degrees is. In this case, identify it here by the little triangle that's given, and then opposite to it is going to be my hypotenuse, right? That is if you guys are not able to identify it by the diagram, because some diagrams are drawn to scale, and then you might think that the hypotenuse is another one. But just quickly identify where the 90 degrees and then opposite to it is going to be your hypotenuse. Once we do that, then we move on to substituting the number. Continue by solving, because substituting the number, the hypotenuse is 10, hence C is 10, and we put it in there, 10 squared. A is going to be one of the legs, and then B is going to be the other one. Which one you want to be A doesn't matter here in this case. Let's put A here, leg A and leg B. Leg A is going to be 8. Here leg A is going to be 8, and then leg B is going to be X. So leg A, right, 8, leg B, X. What is leg A? 8. So we put 8 squared. What is leg B? Leg B is X, so we put plus X squared. Now notice that you have 10 squared equals to 8 squared plus X squared. So the next thing that we want to do is just square. 10 squared is what? In this case, 10 squared is 10 times 10. And then 8 squared is 8 times 8. And then we have, it is 10 times 10 is 100, equals to 8 times 8 is 64 plus X squared, right? This is that, and then this is the 10. I just multiply the 10 2 times and the 8 2 times, because that is what squared means. Multiply the base twice, multiply the base twice. And then the X squared we don't multiply because we don't have a number for it. So move on. Now notice that what we have here now is some sort of algebra, because we have a value of X. Now we need to solve for that value of X. And then what we need to do is we need to take this 64 to where the 100 is, because we want to leave the X by itself. Now there's only one way that we could do that, and always it is going to be by subtracting. So we're going to say subtract 64 here, subtract 64 on the other side, right? So that is what we end up with. 64 minus 64, that is 0, so we scratch that off. 100 minus 64, that is going to be 6 here, and then that's going to be 46. No, sorry, 36. Because we borrowed 1, that's 9, that's 10, that's 36. 36 equals to x squared, right? So that is what we have. Now we haven't finished, because if you notice, the triangle said solve for x, not solve for x squared. So what do we do to get rid of this squared? Lastly, once you end up to the last step, you have 36 equals to x squared. To get rid of this squared, you just square root on that side, and you square root on that side. The square that you have here and the square root will cancel. Those two will cancel, leaving you only with x, right? And then 36 squared, square root of 36, sorry. What is square root of 36? Square root of 36, if you don't have your, if you don't know, use your calculator. Your calculator will tell you that the square root of 36 is going to be 6. 6 equals to x. Hence, we have that 6 miles is the length down here. So here, we would indicate that there, right? And that is what we have on the Pythagoras. Again, let me just quickly go through what we just did. We're taking a look at trigonometry. In this case, we're taking a look at the first theorem that we need to solve. In this case, it's the Pythagoras Theorem. The formula is going to be c squared equals to a squared plus b squared, where c is the hypotenuse, a and b are the legs, right? In order for Pythagoras to work, we have that your triangle or the triangle is a 90 degrees triangle, right? The triangle is a 90 degrees triangle. So this triangle that is given to you must be a 90 degrees. Either it tells you it's a 90 degrees, or you see it by the little box that they normally put on one side, on one corner of the triangle, right? So 90 degrees. After you identify the hypotenuse, which is always opposite to the 90 degrees. So identify where the 90 degrees is, and then opposite to it is the hypotenuse. And then the other two are going to be the legs. You need A and you need B, but you don't need to worry about that. Just put A and B wherever you want, right? It is used to solve a side. So how do we determine if it's going to be Pythagoras? One, because you're going to be asked to solve for the side, while the other two sides are going to be given. For example, here we have the example here. We have 8 miles here, and we have 10 miles here, and we are asked what is the length of this side, which in this case is going to be miles, right? The formula is c squared equals to a squared plus b squared, where c is going to be the hypotenuse, and then if you notice, we label the hypotenuse here, which is going to be 10. So we substitute 10 there, so that's going to be 10 squared equals, what is A? A, we labeled A, leg A, to be this one here, and that's going to be 8, so that's why we entered 8 squared here. And then plus B squared, X squared, sorry, because B is what we're solving, and then it is represented by X, so we put the X there. Next thing, solve 10 squared and 8 squared. 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. And then x squared, 8 squared is 8 times 8, which is 64. You get 100 equals to 64 plus x squared. Transpose the 64 to the other side. We get it is minus 64, minus 64. It will always be minus, right? If the two numbers end up on the same side, then it's going to be add, but in this case opposite side of the equal sign, so we have to say minus 64 minus 64. This cancels off, and then this one gives you 36. 36 equals to x squared. Get rid of the squared by square rooting this side, square rooting the other side, then this squared and the square root cancels off. You end up with x. Square root of 36 is going to be 6, so we find out that the length of this side of the triangle is going to be 6 miles.